10 feet of snow.
I hadn't even thought about that.
In an effort not to make anyone late this afternoon, we'll get going. Manoka, will you call the roll?
Okay, Chair Colson.
Here.
Vice Chair Hosseini.
Here.
Governor Beard. Governor Carter.
Here.
Governor Chopra.
Here.
Governor Fossey. Governor Frost.
Yes, here.
Governor Huizenga.
Present.
Governor Kuntz.
Here.
Governor Lautenbach.
Here.
Governor Levine.
Here.
Governor Link. Governor Morton.
Here.
Governor
Are
Rude.
you on the video?
Commissioner Stewart.
You were so bad.
Governor Tripp.
Here.
I never get
And
to be
Governor
on the
Webster.
video. Oh, yeah.
Chair Colson, you
Frank,
have
go
the floor.
ahead.
Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Because we are doing all our committee meetings and our full board meeting in one day, I'm going to keep my opening remarks short. First, I want to thank New College for hosting this meeting. We were on this beautiful campus last November, but President O'Shea apparently didn't get enough of us and wanted us to bring us back this fall. It's always wonderful to be here, and your hospitality and Chair Johnson's hospitality is much appreciated. So, Mr. President, do you have any comments you want to make?
Well, it's a little late to welcome you, so I'd like to wish you all a good trip back, and just to say it's fantastic to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
we really
and
do
I'll give you
appreciate it.
credit. Bye.
I have decided that since this is the Chancellor's last meeting, that whatever we're going to do to him, we ought to do early in the meeting, not later in the meeting. And so I'm going to go ahead and proceed with whatever we're going to do with him. So I'm going to spend the rest of my time set aside for the chairman's remarks talking about our chancellor. As everyone knows, Chancellor Brogan is leaving us at the end of the month to head up the university system in Pennsylvania. Last night, Chair Johnson and President O'Shea and New College hosted a reception in Frank's honor that was the beginning of what appears to be a month-long farewell tour. His bus will no doubt stop at each of your campuses, Mr. President. We are only on the second stop of this farewell tour. I didn't think it was possible to have an open mic session where everybody could get up and talk about, tell a Frank Brogan story.
Thank God.
No. So instead of doing that, we've prepared a couple of short videos. So the first one is a short video from the presidents that is for you, Frank. So if we could run that, that'd be great.
What's it rated? This is going to be...
Frank, you've come up the ladder just like I have, from the very bottom in the K through 12 all the way up through university president and now chancellor. You've done a lot for the state university system, a lot for education in the state of Florida, and I want to thank you.
We want to thank you for all that you've done to keep our system moving, to keep it whole, and to build the confidence in what we do in the state university system. And I personally know that you're going to have a big impact in Harrisburg. Your smile, your energy, your force of personality, and your vision, Frank, are going to be very healthy for Pennsylvania.
I wish you all the best in Pennsylvania. You know, I'm pretty familiar with that system. I was the provost at Bloomsburg University several years ago. I know that you will bring a lot of talent and experience to improving that system. You've been a great contributor to not just higher education, but all of education.
It's been wonderful working with you these many years, and I hope the good people of Pennsylvania realize how lucky they are to have you. You can take great pride in all you've accomplished here in Florida at every level of public education. I'll miss your energy, enthusiasm, and optimistic outlook.
Your political skills will help you to survive among the Yankees in the great state of Pennsylvania, but it is your sagacity and wit that will help you to get the best of them.
UF and Florida are grateful for all you have done to steer through some difficult times. We are a better system for having had you as Chancellor. Best of luck.
You and I are personal friends, and our friendship, of course, is going to continue, but appreciate all you've done with Florida, and I frankly appreciate just your personal style. I've really never heard you say anything bad about somebody else, and that's pretty rare in government. Good luck up there, and keep in touch.
You have been tireless as an advocate for the great universities in the state of Florida, and I also want to tell you personally, I appreciate the fact that you really kept the university presidents in the loop in your efforts to ensure broad communication across the system.
One thing I definitely want to commend you on is your leadership on the strategic plan and the work plan process for the Board of Governors. That's my time limit, but you know what? I always keep talking just like you do. And so your leadership on those topics are things that you will be going for and something that we're proud of in our state.
The people of Pennsylvania are getting a dynamic leader, an experienced higher education professional, and a good man. Frank, on behalf of UCF, thank you for your service, and may God bless you, Courtney, and Kobe John.
Hello, Frank. Congratulations on your new job, and also thank you for the great job that you did here for the State University System of Florida, bringing us back together as a system.
You've been a constant source of encouragement, of advice, of good counsel, and of very good humor. You have been a steady friend and staunch supporter at New College, and indeed of the other institutions in the state university system.
We've just learned that you're going to Pennsylvania, and quite honestly, we can't believe it. Why on earth would you go up there for a job when there's a perfectly good job available right here at your beloved alma mater? But just in case you decide to move ahead with that other crazy plan of yours, please know that everybody at FAU sends you the owl finger salute and speeds your way on to a good and happy experience. Oh, one more thing. Enjoy the snow. Go Owls.
Mr. Chancellor, I want to add the board's appreciation for your leadership, commitment, and vision for the state university system. Like the chancellors that came before you, each of whom faced their own unique struggles as this board went from a rocky start to the place where we are today. You set your course by first building upon the foundation that was laid by those who came before. Working alongside this board, our trustees and presidents, elected leaders, and so many others, Frank has reminded us of our special purpose, creating the best higher education in the country to serve Florida's greatest resource, its students. Along every step of the way, Chancellor Program reminded us that we should never hesitate to walk and talk like a system. Indeed, our constitutional imperative is to be that uniting force that strengthens our universities. Under your leadership, Chancellor, Florida's university system has experienced a renaissance, and we want to thank you for leaving Florida better than you found it. Now you've heard enough from me. My fellow board members also wanted to pay a special tribute to you and to show you that they can keep up with the presidents. They also created a video.
You blew my socks off the other day when I heard you were leaving Florida. You and I have been friends for over 20 years when you first ran for Commissioner of Education, and what a wonderful job you've done for the state. I remember reading a story about you welcoming students and their families on opening day, bringing them some bottled waters and helping them move their stuff in. And when I became a trustee, I actually did that, and it was because of your example. Until I sent my kids off to college, I didn't realize what a big deal that was. And it was your personal touch that taught me that.
You're a great servant to the state of Florida. You've done so many wonderful things, and for me personally, it's been an honor to work with you.
I have learned, and I want to bestow this to everyone as a parting gift, is do not have him pick you up and transport you anywhere with luggage, because your luggage will end up on a main street being run over by cars. But he did retrieve it for me, so good luck. You're going to do extremely well, and we're going to miss you.
Frank, when I joined this board, I thought you would be great because I knew you were from Cincinnati, and anybody from Cincinnati
is bound to be great, and I've been totally fulfilled in my thoughts. You've been a great chancellor, a great spokesman for the board. You've been fun to work with, and I'm proud to be part of your team and you to be part of our team.
You have consistently done great things because you reduce it down to the least common denominator, the students. That is the most significant thing that we work with every day is the students. What's in the best interest of the students? I know you're going to take that same zeal, excitement, and energy to Pennsylvania, and their gain is our loss.
I remember the day when I was appointed to the search committee for the chancellor, and you were one of the candidates. I was so impressed, and I think that's one of the best things I've done is to vote for you as our chancellor.
I said, you know, Frank, I really think you ought to consider being the chancellor. We need someone with your skills. And after a little while, Frank said, you know, I really have to be careful about this, but I'll consider it and I'll do it. Before I got back to Fort Lauderdale, I got a call from Frank, and Frank said, you know, maybe I was a little quick in the restaurant saying, yes, I do this. I said, Frank, it's too late. We're glad you're here. We're going to miss you. Good luck on the next venture.
The students at the University of North Florida and recently in the FSA, we know Frank the Tank as Chancellor Broganator. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's passionate about our students, he's passionate about our faculty, he's passionate about everybody who works for the state university system. And it's really sad to see him go.
You certainly were the right person at the right place at the right time for the state of Florida. We're going to miss you. Good luck.
It's been a pleasure getting to spend time with you the last 10 months. You've been a great mentor to me and an educator, truly at heart, by sharing. We appreciate it. We hope that you do very well. We know you'll do fantastic in Pennsylvania.
We've all benefited from your friendship, your counsel, your wisdom. You will be missed after, let's face it, an entire career devoted to the greater good of the state of Florida.
Your mentoring of me is something that I will always treasure and something that I'll continue to bother you with, calling you whenever I can to get your advice. Good luck to you, and we'll look forward to having you back in Florida one day.
Well, for the last 4 years, I've had the privilege of working with Frank Brogan, and he has been a wonderful asset for this state. He's a man I admire and respect. He stood tough when he needed to stand tough. And he's been kind and generous with his time, and we're going to miss him, and I'm going to miss him personally.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm usually have a favorite cities that I look at the weather to see, you know, if it's a nice weather or if it's a snow. And usually when it's snow, I'm not very happy because that stops us playing golf. But in the case of Frank, I'm going to look at where he is in Pennsylvania, and if it's snowing, I'm going to say, yes! And God ought to teach you a lesson to leave us. Frank, I can't tell you how much we appreciate all your help, dedication to our state system.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vouchers, schmouchers, opportunity scholarships.
We're gonna do it. Give us any chance, we'll take it. Give us any room, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Doing it our way, nothing's gonna turn us back now. We're headed on the trail. Make our dreams come true. Doing it our way, there's nothing we won't try. What's impossible this time? There's no stopping us. We're gonna do it. On your mark and set and go now. Got a dream and we just know now. We're gonna make that dream come true. And we'll do it our way, yes, our way. Make all our dreams come true, and we'll do it.
He looks the same. Go see Jeb, you know. Go see any of us. He He looks the same.
That's the difference between being the governor and the lieutenant governor.
We have prepared as a board a resolution honoring and thanking Frank. And may I have a motion to approve this resolution? We have a motion.
So moved.
And second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And I'm not going to read the whole resolution, but it says at the end, be it resolved, that the members of the Board of Governors meeting at the Sudikoff Conference Center, New College of Florida, on this 12th day of September 2013, do hereby commend Mr. Frank T. Brogan for his invaluable contributions to the state of Florida, Florida Atlantic University, the state university system, and the Board of Governors, and wish him success and happiness in Pennsylvania. Be it further resolved that the resolution be presented to Mr. Brogan as a small token of the board's appreciations and thanks. Thank you.
Thank you,
Frank.
Mr. Chairman. Very much. You know, when I saw Jan Ignash standing up there before, and as you're getting ready to transition out of something, you think, okay, what am I leaving behind that I feel really great about? And one of the things is that I leave behind an individual and a staff that I think will take good care of everything that we've been doing together. I'm delighted to endorse Jan in becoming the interim chancellor of the State University System of Florida. And for those of you who've worked with her in the time that she's been here, I'm sure you'll agree that the board is looking at a very important and I think very wise opportunity as they look to consider that role. And I mentioned the staff. Governor Colson mentioned earlier how small our staff is comparatively when you look around the country, and it is, but it may be small in size. It's mighty in the work that it turns out in its relationship with the universities and the broader community of Florida. They're a remarkable group of individuals, and collectively I think they make up the finest state university system staff in the country. The delight that I've had working with this Board of Governors, previous boards of governor members who've come and gone, the members of the boards of trustees, all the great presidents of our universities, faculty, staff, administration, and of course, as someone mentioned, those amazing students, those that were 10 years old and in my first fifth grade class, and those that I now have as members of the second largest state university system in the United States. Whether I was walking my own campus or yours, I have always gone to work every single day believing that the most important thing I did was to serve students and their needs, and I know that's what you do too. I want to thank New College, and as did our chair, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the hospitality. You will now also hold a very special place in my heart because this is where I had the chance to say goodbye at New College. But as I walk away from this system and from New College, your future, I think, as is the future of every university represented in this room, very bright and very important. I suppose, after having been given a wonderful gift last night by this Board of Governors, a beautiful portrait that I'll be taking with me, and I today say we, my family, you heard mention Courtney and Colby John, who are already in Harrisburg because he had to start second grade earlier than I had to start becoming chancellor. They're off and running as new citizens of Pennsylvania and specifically Harrisburg. But on behalf of all of us, I will say this: as beautiful as the portrait and as many other great gifts as I've been provided over the last few weeks, not only in terms of traditional gifts, but the gifts of good comment, fellowship, friendship, and even outreach. The best thing I can do is leave you with a gift, and I will do that by simply saying I'm a better man for having known every single one of you. And I love you, and God bless you in the state of Florida. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
get to something exciting like the minutes. I tell you, I had to add, we talk several times a week, and he stood up when he had to stand up. So he's been a gift to the system at the right time. So, all right. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Governors meeting held by conference call June 10th, 2013?
I'll move it.
Second. We got a motion and a second. Any comments, revisions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We need the general counsel to read some we have to approve the minutes on June 20th meeting, and you have to read something about a conflict.
Right, could we roll the Jeb and Frankie tape again? Got a little choked up.
You know, they told me they destroyed all those old videos. You do realize that.
We're going to have a lot of fun in the office, Frank.
You too.
Yes, this is a memorandum of voting conflict for state officers, and it was filed by Governor Kuntz in relation to two financing deals that came up at the June meeting, and we're required to read this into the record. The measures before the Board of Governors entailed approval of the issuance of debt by the Seminole Boosters, Inc. to finance construction of a student housing facility, and by the University of South Florida Financing Corporation to reimburse the University of South Florida for a portion of the costs associated with the renovation of the USF Arena and Convocation Center. In both measures, the financing will be in the form of a loan made by SunTrust Bank Florida, and the bank was selected pursuant to a competitive procurement process. As the Chairman, President, and Chief Executive Officer of SunTrust Bank Florida, I felt it prudent to abstain from the vote on these measures to avoid any appearance of a potential conflict of interest between my responsibilities as a Board of Governors member and my position with SunTrust Bank Florida.
Thank you. Now may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Governors meeting held on June 20th, 2013 at the University of South Florida?
So moved.
We have a motion, and we have a second. Any comments, revisions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Chancellor report.
Yes, sir. Just a couple of quick introductions. We talked a little bit today about the staff of the state university system, so I wanted to put some faces with names. With the help of the Florida legislature, we were able to add several key positions to our central office, and two of those folks are here today. One of them is Dr. Chris Mullen. Dr. Mullen, where are you? You're in the room? I said he was here today. Perhaps he's here and gone. But Chris is a wonderful addition, and he will support the board's Access and Attainment Commission that Dr. Ignash has been leading. He's going to be invaluable on the whole issue of our data and collection, dissemination, disaggregation, and turning it into great public policy. I also want to introduce our brand new Inspector General. When I say brand new, first day was Monday. Don't take it personally that I'm leaving on Friday. It's we were really fortunate as Derry Harper left us, and by the way, he is off in Tennessee, working in Tennessee now, and from what I understand, doing great, very happy. That left a hole for Inspector General. We were very fortunate that we had a number of outstanding candidates, most of whom, as finalists, were sitting Inspector Generals. And so it wasn't a case of having to give people on-the-job training. Such is the case with Joe Malashevsky. Joe was the Inspector General for the Department of Economic Opportunity. He comes to us with great recommendations from people across state government who have worked with him, around him, and for him, and we're delighted to have him. The role of Inspector General in our system, as most of you know, is quite interesting in light of the fact that it is a one-person shop for all intents and purposes, and therefore we rely very heavily on the inspectors generals of our universities for all things audit and investigations, etc. But it requires that the person who sits in Tallahassee have the talent and skill to be able to navigate all of that, as Governor Levine knows as chair of the audit committee. So, Joe, we are delighted to have you as a part of our team, and truly I can leave knowing that that spot is secure with you at the helm. Welcome. You want to stand and let everybody get a look at you? There he is. And lastly, Mr. Chair, is a simple acknowledgement that we have continued to talk about STEM and health initiatives, and we have posted the job that we were able to secure with the help of the legislature on someone to come in and help us on those related issues to try to create, if you will, something akin to a strategic plan on those very important initiatives. And we hope that very soon we will be able to fill those positions. We have two: one, someone to work in the office on a regular basis, wake up every day and do that, and two, someone on a consultation format who will work in helping us work with each of the universities and then collectively as a system on health and STEM-related issues. So we're almost there on those, as I understand it, and probably by November should be able to report the completion of those searches. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back over to you and the members of the board.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the board consideration of the position of interim chancellor. I am recommending that Vice Chancellor and Chief Academic Officer Jan Ignash assume the duties as interim chancellor beginning October 1st. We are fortunate to have in Dr. Ignash a seasoned academic leader who is already involved in the board's most important initiatives. If appointed by the board, she will be able to keep these initiatives on track as we conduct a search for the permanent chancellor. Dr. Ignash joined the board office in 2012 after serving as Chief Academic Officer for the State of Washington Higher Education Coordinating Council. She has 3 decades of experience in higher education at both the state and campus levels. She has taught at both the undergraduate and graduate levels and earned tenure at our own University of South Florida. She worked at the Illinois Board of Higher Education from 1994 through 1999. She earned her Ph.D. in education from UCLA and holds master's and bachelor's degrees from Michigan State. I have spoken to Jan about this possibility. If the board agrees with my recommendation, she's prepared to take on the duties of interim chancellor in addition to her current responsibility as vice chancellor and chief academic officer. Importantly, Jan has stressed to me that she's not interested in the position of becoming permanent chancellor. With that, I'm looking for a motion that the board appoint Dr. Jan Ignash to serve as interim chancellor beginning October 1st, 2013, and the board delegate to the chair authority to approve a temporary compensation adjustment for Dr. Ignash during her employment as interim chancellor.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. Where's
By the way, Mr. Chairman, when you live with Brogan, you die with Brogan. Please don't call her Iggy. It drives her crazy. I'm the only one allowed to do that.
Oh, me.
Oh, God.
I suspect I will replace you as the only person who's allowed to do that. The next item on our agenda is the confirmation of the reappointment of the president of the University of Florida. Under Florida law, our board must confirm the reappointment of a university president by a university board of trustees. On June 7, 2013, the Board of Trustees of the University of Florida unanimously reappointed Dr. Machen to serve as the president of the University of Florida. David Brown, chair of the University of Florida Board of Trustees, submitted a request that our board confirm Dr. Machen's reappointment. This request, along with the highlights of President Machen's accomplishments during his tenure at the University of Florida and a summary of key contract amendments, are included in your materials. Chair Brown is here to present President Machen for reappointment by the Board of Governors. Chair Brown, we're ready for your comments. David.
I think everything speaks for itself in the package. President Machen has had an outstanding run, if you will, at University of Florida. We tried to get him to stay for 5 more years. It's only 1 more year. But we are very, very fortunate that he has agreed to do it. He continues to lead the University of Florida in an outstanding fashion, and we are very pleased to ask for your confirmation of his agreement.
Mr. President, would you like to say anything?
Don't say a word. I think I got the votes here, Bernie.
Governor Levine, would you have a motion for us?
I do. You know, we have some great presidents in this room, the best in the country, and each of them has the opportunity to leave an indelible mark on their universities. And I think all of them are, including Dr. Machen, who in 10 years has just completed a $1.7 billion capital campaign, just commenced another $800 million campaign, created the Florida Opportunity Scholarship Program. 2,600 low-income students are the first in their families to attend college at the University of Florida. He's done some amazing things there, and he loves the students. He's there for the right reason, so I'm proud to make the motion to confirm Dr. Matchin for the extension of his contract.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion?
I have one correction. Mr. Brown, you said 1 more year, but from what I read in the agreement here, it goes to December of 14.
It was an extension of his contract for 1 year, but service is correct.
Contract expires in December of 13.
December, okay, goes to the first. So, okay. All right, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations, Mr. President. Thank you, David, for coming. We appreciate your service as well. Our next item on the agenda is the consideration and confirmation of the interim president at Florida Atlantic University. Under our board regulations, the University Board of Trustees must bring any candidate for interim president before us by confirmation. On June 27th, 2013, the Board of Trustees of Florida Atlantic University selected Dennis Crudell as the interim president beginning on August 13th, 2013. Anthony Barber, chair of Florida Atlantic University Board of Trustees, submitted a request for our board to confirm President Crudell. That request and Mr. Crudell's CV are included in your materials. Chair Barber is here to present Mr. Crudell for consideration and for confirmation by the Board of Governors. Chair Barber, we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Florida Atlantic University Board of Trustees to present Mr. Dennis Crudell as our interim president. Dennis has spent his career in the state university system. He's been at Florida Atlantic University for 26 years. Most recently, he was our vice president for finance and administration and did an outstanding job. And when in May, he was appointed interim president when President Saunders tendered her resignation. He has been extremely well received by the university community, the faculty, the administration, the donors, the alumni. He is doing an outstanding job, and our board unanimously and without hesitation asked him to serve in this capacity, and we're grateful that he's done it. It's also given us the opportunity during this interim period to not lose any momentum because he's continuing to move the ball forward, and I greatly appreciate Dennis's willingness to step into this gap. So,
Dennis, would you like to say anything?
Well, I'd like to follow in Dr. Manchin's wonderful speech. Thank you very much. But I do want to say thank you to the confidence that the Board of Trustees of FAU have placed in me, and I've really been a lifelong supporter of education in Florida. I've been in the system 35 years, and there's no better place to be.
Thank you. May I have a motion to confirm Dennis Crudell as the interim president of Florida Atlantic University?
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations, sir.
thank you.
Item 8, Vicki, our general counsel, is going to explain the amendments to the board operating procedures.
Thank you, Chair Colson. During the 2013 legislative session, a new sunshine law was enacted to become effective October 1, 2013. And the new law requires boards and commissions who are subject to the sunshine to provide a reasonable opportunity for the public to be heard on propositions pending before the board. We already had an appearance section in your operating procedures, but this is in your packet at Article 5, Section H, appearances before the board. And the new law allows boards and commissions to set reasonable parameters on how the public will interface with a board, such as a time limit for each speaker, which in your, we are proposing 3 minutes per speaker, which could either be extended or shortened at the discretion of the chair, to provide for a public comment period, which we are provided for in the proposed amendment at the beginning of each plenary session, to have a 15-minute period set aside for public comment on any items that may be pending on your agenda. We're also providing if there are groups or factions that want to be heard on a proposition that they need to designate a representative to speak on their behalf. There's also an amendment to the standing committee section related to the new Health Initiatives Committee that you have populated. And that committee shall have the responsibility for providing leadership on the development of system-wide level policy related to health initiatives in medical education. And that's my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. First, can I get a motion to approve these two amendments? We have a motion, a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Dr. Ignash, we're going to have a little brief update on the Access Commission.
Right. The Access and Attainment Commission started its work, it was May or June a year ago, so it's been about 15 months. And in that time, the commission has met about 7 times. Very substantive conversations, and the work has been truly intense and on a fast track. There's been 2 groups that support the commission. The first is a group of researchers from all the various workforce and education agencies, and then there's a group of senior policy staff from these agencies as well, and I call them affectionately my kitchen cabinet. And they have provided information. There's been a lot of back and forth between the commission members and these groups. The commission members are Dean Colson, I'm chair of my board, obviously, Marshall Kreiser, Tom Kuntz, who's our budget board or committee chair, Wendy Link, who's our vice chair of academic and student affairs, Susan Paragus from the Florida Council of 100, former representative Bill Proctor, and then Kathleen Shanahan from the State Board of Ed. So it's been, obviously there are no wallflowers on that group. It's been interesting conversations, and I will honestly say that the work that the commission accomplished is already being hailed in other states. Susan was recently at a conference in D.C. and noted that people are actually taking note of this work, and we'll get to that in a minute. The Commission's guiding questions were several. They're on this PowerPoint slide. Will the pipeline of college-age students produce enough college-ready students? And should these students attend our state universities, or is there a major role to be played by the state's colleges? And we had some of that conversation this morning. Will there be any future need for additional universities or colleges to meet this demand? And then will the increased demand be evenly distributed around the state, or are some regions going to be disproportionately affected geographically? So flowing from that was another subset of questions. If you think about where there might be regional gaps, it's a real short step to trying to identify what industries, what occupations those are in. So a big work product out of the commission was gap analysis. And we looked at shorter-term questions, what industries and occupations are projected to be in greatest demand in Florida through 2020, both statewide and by regions. And we were looking at gaps that were at the baccalaureate degree level. We intended to look also at the graduate level, but there wasn't enough time, and that analysis is also quite difficult, and we would need more time to do that. What is the gap between projected demand and potential supply for areas of undersupply, such as IT, both statewide and by region? And then if we accept the board's degree projections to 2020, what is the potential demand for graduates in the top occupations? There was a longer-term question, too, that the commission engaged in at several of the meetings. I'm not sure we arrived at an answer, but it's still something that was part of the deliberations. It's reflected in the summary of the meetings. Does the commission envision a more ambitious future for Florida with demands for higher levels of education for future workers? And so the legislature, and I'll get to this in a minute, is supportive of this gap analysis that we did. And for those of you who do this work on your campuses, you know that this is not for the timid. There are labor has a coding system and education has a coding system. the Department of Labor's coding system, and they were developed in isolation, so they don't really talk to each other. So you've got your standard occupational classification system, which is, these are SOC codes, and then you have your classification of instructional programs, which are your SIP codes, and somehow you marry these together and you identify where your gaps are. This is the researchers who did this analysis from the Florida Council of 100, the Department of Economic Opportunity, the Florida College System, ICUF, the Independent Colleges and Universities of Florida, also sent folks, people from my staff. These researchers met every 2 weeks between 2 and 4 o'clock on a Thursday, and sometimes spilled over until 5 o'clock, to develop this gap analysis. And let's see if this, yes. Finding number 3 is the top 3 critical areas, but on our website under the commission materials is a 2.5-page document of gaps in which more than 100 openings in Florida go unfilled every year. And so what you have here on number 3 are gaps that are 1,000 or more unfilled openings a year. These are the very largest gaps, but these are not the only gaps. Computer and information technology, we have annual openings of over 2,361 positions that go unfilled every year. Accounting, financial services, and auditing, around 1,000. Middle school teachers, that's around 970, and I'll talk about that more in a minute, because it's not probably that we're not producing enough teachers, it's that we don't retain them. And so if we're going to target that as a gap area, we probably need to think a little innovatively and a little differently on how we're going to do that. Other key findings from the commission were the fact that there is sufficient capacity in the current system to expand as needed without building new colleges or universities, and that the state university system should work collaboratively with the Florida college system to expand on demand in strategic ways. We do think that there is sufficient capacity to be able to target these programs of very, very high need, these critical need areas, and to do it without having to build new colleges or campuses. The legislature very graciously funded this gap analysis work to the tune of $15 million last year. And we have been working closely with ledge staff to talk about their intent for the legislation. They would like the $15 million to be distributed in a small number of grants, maybe 4 to 6, in the very, very highest areas, these 3 areas that are listed there. And we've been working with them hand in glove in terms of developing an RFP. We have a draft RFP almost finished. It's going to have to go through formal processes within the Department of Education. And we have a draft report that Dean has seen, that a few other folks have seen, and that will be circulating more widely after September 25th, which is the next commission meeting. The RFP, and I want to get this on folks' radar screen, because the goal is, I'm going to skip this slide. The goal is for institutions to be able to respond to this RFP process, and for applications to be due February 3rd. That's pretty quickly. So that the team can review the applications, and we can get grant awards at least announced by mid-March. The reason we want to do this is we want to make sure that we have this done by the time ledge session is underway. Grant funds will be distributed then probably around mid-May, and then we're off and running on the first year. The legislature appropriated the money last year, so we have it, and it's ready to be distributed. It's not that we have to wait for it to be appropriated this coming year. We're just very thankful for their support of this work. It promises the ability to be able to sort of pay down these gaps in some real high demand areas. We're hoping in in not just quick ways, but in quality ways. In the RFP process that we developed, there are a couple of things that the legislature has requested that we do. The first is that a state university system must be the lead institution. A state university system institution must be lead on all of these grants. And the legislature told me very clearly, we're giving the money to you, you're on the hook for it, you're responsible, we want some documentation that you really are addressing these high critical need areas, and we will hold you accountable. And the second thing is that in the process, we've built the RFP so that partnerships are favorably regarded in the point system. So you get extra points if you're partnering with another institution. Part of the reason in doing this is because we want to provide incentives for a region to address a critical shortage area collaboratively. And we don't intend for our gap analysis list to be a shopping list. It would not do for everybody to go out and create these programs all at once. That's not what we intend. But in these high gap areas, in these real critical demand areas, we feel that they need to be sustainable. There's the incentive funding provided for the first year, and with promises of a second year, if the legislature appropriates that, is sufficient to get to ramp up a program to be able to make some immediate impact. So with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jan. We talked about this at length yesterday at our retreat and the work of this. Anybody have any other questions? No. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is Governor Huizenga with the Facilities Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Facilities Committee has several items of business to report to the board, starting with the 2014-15 fixed capital outlay legislative budget request. That's hard after lunch. The first item considered was the 5-year fixed capital outlay request, which provides funding to meet identified academic and academic support facility needs. This includes both PICO and non-recurring general revenue funding. I'd like to move approval of the 5-year fixed capital plan outlay budget request as approved by the Facilities Committee this morning.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The committee then considered a request for capital improvement trust fund projects, including the annual debt service appropriation. The committee adopted a budget which includes both cash and bond revenues. Accordingly, I'd like to move approval of the CITF request as approved by the Facilities Committee.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The committee will be conducting a workshop to review new project requests, and the January meeting will consider possible amendments and additions to the legislative budget request. In addition to the legislative budget request, the committee was presented with a request from University of Florida to issue housing bonds. This was approved by the committee, and so I move approval of a resolution of the Board of Governors requesting the Division of Bond Finance of the State Board of Administration to issue revenue bonds on behalf of the University of Florida to finance the construction of a student housing facility on the main campus of the University of Florida.
We have a motion. Second. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Lastly, the committee approved a series of amendments to the State University System facilities regulations, as well as the debt guidelines. These were all approved by the committee for notice purposes, and I would like to move all four with one motion if there are no objections.
Second.
I move the following be noticed for proposed amendment. Regulation 9.005, naming of buildings and facilities. Regulation 14.0025, action required prior to capital outlay appropriations. Regulation 14.023, notice and protest procedures, and State University System debt management guidelines.
Second. Motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Chair Colson, that concludes the report of the Facilities Committee, and I believe I made up the time I lost this morning.
Thank you, Governor Huizenga. I've been told that and I haven't been able to, we're privileged to have three of our state representatives here with us today. Representative Greg Stubbe, Representative Ray Pilon, and Representative Jim Boyd. Can you all welcome? Come forward and. Everyone at this table is keenly aware that everything we do is done in partnership with all of you all, and we are very appreciative for your interest in higher education and your presence here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I will be brief, and thanks for that warm welcome. I'd like my colleagues to speak as well. Kind of interestingly, none of us are on education committees, but just as interesting, we're all very, very committed to education in general and certainly higher education. I'd like to first thank you for being in my district. This is the heart of our district, so I would encourage you to stay a long time, spend a lot of money. And I know Dr. O'Shea's certainly rolled out the welcome mat, but we're glad you're here again, so thank you very much. Carla, welcome. We met in Tallahassee, and glad to see you on the board. Just a real quick point of personal privilege, Chancellor Brogan, we don't get to chat much, but I understand they had something for you earlier. We're going to miss you, sir. You've done a marvelous job here, and across a variety of public service functions, but we're certainly going to miss you and wish you well as you move forward. And just from my standpoint, I'd just simply say I understand how important what you do is and what our universities do. There's great news this week. I won't single out my institution. Florida State is receiving some great news this week, or my constituent, Dr. O'Shea, is receiving great news this week as well. But the momentum's building, and I think there's just great things happening in Florida. We're going to continue to support that in the legislature. I can assure you. It's a commitment of the governor, it's a commitment of the speaker, it's a commitment of the Senate president to do that. So I'm happy to be part of that, and thank you for the warm welcome today. And probably there's not many questions you could ask that I could answer, but we're certainly here. If you need us, call on us, and we'd be happy to be your advocate any way we can. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Greg Stubbe, Representative Greg Stubbe. I also represent eastern Manatee and eastern Sarasota County, so you're just outside my district, not too far along. And I would like to say quickly, Mr. Brogan, thank you for all of your great service to the state. You probably don't remember it, but I was an intern for then House Representative Adam Putnam, and I have a picture with you, me, and him and when you were Lieutenant Governor. So
you were like 9.
Yeah. And I was an undergrad, so I was in my 20s, but well, thank you for all your great service to the state of Florida. And I authored, I do want to bring this up because I think this has been a kind of a bit of contention and things as we move through the state. I authored and had the public-private partnership bill last year. And I know that that's very important to this body, and I want to say that the legislative intent of that bill was to include universities and colleges. And it's my position and it's the legislature's position that you are included in that, and you can utilize that for infrastructure projects in all of your campuses and colleges. So I know that there's some distortion as to whether you can or you cannot, and I'm a lawyer too, so there's, I'm sure, other lawyers that disagree with us, but I want you to know that we're committed to work with you both on that issue and on the bill that we had in appropriations last year as it relates to the bonding issue. We in the House had that bonding issue that went through as a committee bill in the Appropriations Committee at the House, and we as a House in the legislature are committed to ensuring that our state universities and colleges are well funded, that you have the capital expenses that you need to be successful on your individual campuses, and that we're giving you all the tools that are necessary in your toolbox, like public-private partnerships and the other like, to ensure your success. So I would welcome any questions that you have on that too, and again, thank you for being in and around our districts, and it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Ray Pilon, and you used to be in my district before Representative Boyd stole it during redistricting. You're very close. The three of us actually bump up against each other. It makes for a great delegation, and I just want to extend one more welcome to you to our area, but particularly to thank you for your service to our state and what you do, and to the commitment to higher education and our students. I just left Tampa in the Bay Area legislative delegation, and the governor was there, and one of his purposes of being there was to welcome Copa Airlines, one of the up-and-coming airlines from Panama. Well, we all know what's happening with Panama. So they'll be running nonstop flights between Tampa and Panama 4 times a week starting in December, and the underlying theme of that is it brings more jobs. and we bring more jobs, we need more people and intelligent people and educated people to fill those jobs. The same with the Port of Tampa, the same with right here at SRQ. All of these things are moving in a great positive thing. So as our job as a legislature, number one is to support your efforts, because supporting your efforts and getting our students, and we talked about having teachers stay here and having our educated students stay here in their professions, we're going to do our best to support you in doing that, but at the same time do what we can do to provide more opportunities, as you've seen we've done in the last few sessions. So once again, thank you for all you do, and thank you for allowing us to speak today. And by the way, do we play any teams in Pennsylvania?
No.
You're safe then. Yeah, Tampa beat Pittsburgh, so we're good. But anyway, thank you all for coming, and thank you for allowing us to speak.
Did he intern for you when he was 9 also?
Yes, he did. Yeah. He was
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Budget and Finance Committee, Governor Kuntz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We had a good meeting this morning, and we have several items that require full board action. The first is the approval of amended Regulation 18.002, Notice and Protest Procedures. We have one amended regulation that was approved for public notice at our June board meeting, which is the one I just referenced. There were no public comments received during the comment period. Therefore, I would like to make a motion to approve amended Regulation 18.002, Notice and Protest Procedures for protests related to a university's contract procurement process. Just as a reminder, we discussed this at the June board meeting.
Yes, we have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The second item, we have 4 regulations that are being amended to conform to existing statute, provide clarification on particular issues, and update areas to conform to previous board actions. This would be the first step of our 2-step process, so we will take up the amended regulations for final approval at the November board meeting. These were generally fairly minor changes. I would like to make a motion to approve the public notice of intent to amend Regulations 7.001, 7.003, 7.008, and 9.007.
We have a motion. Second. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Third item, Mr. Chairman, is we have a new regulation on collegiate license plate revenues. Once again, after the notice period, final approval will be at the November board meeting. I'd like to make a motion to approve the public notice of intent to propose Regulation 9.014.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Fourth item, Mr. Chair, the committee heard a presentation on the State University System operating budget and the board general office budget. So I have 2 motions that I think are required. First, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2013-14 State University System operating budget. So
we have a second on that motion? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Second, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2013-14 Board General Office budget and authorize the Chancellor to make budgetary changes as necessary to operate the office.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The fifth item, Mr. Chair, is committee reviewed and discussed in detail the definitions associated with the 3 metrics approved by the legislature and governor this past session relating to our allocation of a $20 million performance funding allocation. After we approve the methodology, and if we approve the methodology, staff will transmit the information to the legislature by October 31st. By approving this, as council so expertly worded our motion earlier today, this would also include identifying the funding amounts per university to total $20 million.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item, committee has reviewed and approved a university budget request That is a 2% increase over the 2013-14 appropriation and a 0% increase for the board office. The legislative budget request will be submitted to the legislature and governor by October 15th. I would like to make a motion to approve the 2014-15 legislative budget request for the state university system and the board office, and authorize the chancellor to make technical changes as necessary.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion
And
passes.
finally, relating to performance funding going forward, as the board knows, we have been working on a performance funding model that has 10 metrics. 8 of these metrics apply to all universities. There is one metric chosen by this board and one chosen by the Board of Trustees of each university. We reviewed various metrics for consideration and have chosen a metric for each university, except for New College, where we have chosen 2. We are instructing the boards of trustees to choose a metric from our list of metrics and return it to us for our November meeting. I'd like to make a motion approving the following metrics for each university. The committee approved proposing the metric percent of bachelor's degrees without excess hours for Florida A&M, Florida Atlantic, Florida Gulf Coast University, Florida International, University of Central Florida, University of North Florida, University of South Florida, and University of West Florida. And we proposed and approved proposing the metric faculty award for the University of Florida and Florida State University. And as far as New College is concerned, we approved national rankings for institutional and program achievements, as well as freshmen in top 10% of graduating high school classes, the 2 metrics for them, and I would move approval of
We have a
those.
motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Governor Tripp, Academic and Student Affairs.
Thank you. The committee considered and approved public notice of intent to amend Board of Governors regulations relating to admission of undergraduate first time in college and transfer degree-seeking students. Amendments to these regulations are technical in nature, clarifying that starting fall 2014, consideration of ACT test scores in admission decisions must be based on the ACT plus writing exam, and clarifying that the foreign language admission requirement can be met by demonstrating competency at the second high school level or higher. The committee also considered and approved public notice of intent to amend the regulation related to post-secondary college-level preparatory testing, placement, and instruction for state universities. This action will align board regulations with changes made to the state board rule as a result of the 2013 legislative changes to statute. Pursuant to the regulation procedure adopted by the board at its meeting on March 23, 2006, the board is required to provide public notice by publication on its internet website at least 30 days before adoption of the proposed regulation. I therefore move approval of public notice of intent to amend Regulation 6.002, admission of undergraduate first time in college degree-seeking freshmen. I also move approval of public notice of intent to amend Regulation 6.004, admission of undergraduate degree-seeking transfer students. And lastly, I move approval of public notice of intent to amend Regulation 6.008, post-secondary college-level preparatory testing, placement, and instruction for state universities.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The Academic and Student Affairs Committee also received the new baccalaureate degree approval processes of the Florida college system and the state university system. Vice Chancellor Jan Iggy, Jan Ignash, Vice Chancellor.
It's kind of hoping you'd wait till I laughed, but.
And Vice Chancellor Julie Alexander presented their respective systems processes. The Florida college system process is governed by Florida statute, and the state university system process is governed by the Board of Governors regulations. The committee also received an update on the pilot cooperative summer course field studies in marine biology offered under the auspices of the Florida Institute of Oceanography. The course was offered for the first time in the 2013 summer semester by the University of North Florida, Florida Atlantic University, Florida Gulf Coast University, and the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. It also allowed students to tap into the various areas of expertise that exist at the partnering institutions and will serve as a model for developing future cooperative courses. It was clear from the presentation that the students learned a lot and had a memorable adventure in the process. These types of hand-on learning activities not only provide relevance to classroom instruction, they also serve to generate student interest in pursuing more advanced STEM degrees. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. The next item is the Strategic Planning Committee report, and I'll report out for the Strategic Planning Committee. It considered three major agenda items, one of which it brings to the board for action. First, the committee circled back to its June discussion of university work plans. As a result of the university work plan presentations and deliberations in June of this year, staff prepared a list of issues that appear to be impacting multiple institutions across the state university system. These include improving retention and graduation rates, increasing STEM production, reducing student debt, academic program duplication, the identification of unique programs and research agendas, and excess hours. Staff also prepared a list of issues that have been raised for each institution during the course of presentations, dialogue, and deliberations in June. The board expects that these issues will be a major area of focus for each institution as it prepares next year's work plan. Secondly, the committee began a discussion of strategic plan alignment, specifically the extent to which the system is on target to meet 2025 goals on several of its key measures. Strategic plan alignment will also involve the board's updating of its programs of strategic emphasis. The discussion of strategic plan alignment will also involve the extent to which each university's strategic plan appropriately reflects the goals of the board of Governor's strategic plan. This is a conversation which the board will need to be fully engaged over the course of several meetings. The committee had one action item. The committee considered a request from Florida Atlantic University to close its Treasure Coast campus due to declining state support and increased competition for a limited pool of students in the area. The FAU Board of Trustees determined in June 2012 that the programs offered at the Treasure Coast campus could be more efficiently and effectively delivered at the Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute in Fort Pierce, the Jupiter campus, the main campus at Boca Raton, or by offering the programs online. The relocation of the academic programs and the teach-out plan for existing students was approved by SACS on March 28, 2013. In the 2013-14 General Appropriations Act, the Florida Legislature passed the transfer of the Port St. Lucie facilities from FAU to Indian River State College, and Governor Scott signed it into law on May 20, 2013. At its June 11, 2013 meeting, the FAU Board of Trustees approved the transfer of the Port St. Lucie property to Indian River State College. The Strategic Planning Committee is recommending that the full board approve the FAU request to close its Treasure Coast campus. On behalf of the Strategic Planning Committee, I move that the full board approve the Florida Atlantic University request to close its Treasure Coast campus. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. There's nothing further. Strategic Planning Committee. I do want to bring up, and that's the last thing on our agenda, I do want to announce the establishment of the Health Initiatives Committee. This is a committee that I first mentioned at our January meeting, and frankly, I couldn't get it going before because we just didn't have the staff. But because of the generosity of the legislature, we were able to get another staff position for this, and I think it's important. Governor Ed Morton will chair the committee. Governor Elizabeth Wester will serve as vice chair. Governors Beard, Chopra, and Levine will be the members of the committee. The committee will address medical education in the system, and its first charge will be to develop a system-level strategic plan for coordinating healthcare initiatives, so they have quite a task ahead of them. Our next meeting of the board will be a conference call of the Strategic Planning Committee and the full board scheduled for September 27th at 10 a.m. The purpose of the call is to consider the recommendations of the UF Online Advisory Board regarding the University of Florida's plan for online education. The advisory board will be submitting its recommendations to our board following its meeting on September 16th. Our next in-person meeting will be on November 20th and 21st at Florida International University in Miami. In conjunction with that meeting, we will be holding our first trustee summit on November 20th. The summit will be an opportunity for trustees to hear from national speakers and to connect with each other. Our keynote speaker will be Thomas W. Ross, the president of the 17-campus University of North Carolina system. Our staff have been working with the trustee liaisons on each campus. We know that we will have a good representation from the trustees. So, it's 2:20. I'm open to having a discussion, but I hate to do that because somebody will bring something up that's going to be... Is there anything further for the good of the order?
Motion to adjourn.
We got a motion to adjourn. Frank, I'm going to miss you.
And I use her.
Okay.
And all of them. Thank you again.
Thank you all. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.